Welcome, in front of me is a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G, and today I will go over unboxing along with an overview of this phone. So let's start off by actually opening it up. Now right off the bat I will already start by saying this is basically a super budget device without actually a budget price tag. But you will see what I mean in a second. So we go, get rid of the paper here and pop this up, phone, and here we got just paperwork, it looks like. Yep, just paperwork, so I'm just gonna toss that to the side. The phone itself, a whopping 15-watt charger. Not sure if this is gonna be visible. So you can see right over here, 15 watts. So yeah, a fairly trash charger. And then we got a cable. I'm surprised that it's even Type-C because this phone is not the best one, I would say. So there we go. You can hopefully see, there we go, Type-C. So at least they included the charger and a Type-C port. So I guess I can't really complain here that much, considering some other devices don't even come with a charger anymore. But anyway, for a phone released in 2020, this I wouldn't say is necessarily anything great. Will that fall out? Nope. So it looks like it's also sticking onto the side. So, oh, there we go. Any juice? There we go. So let's get that out of the way. Now while the device is turning on, I will mention it does have a 6.5-inch display, so fairly big, along with a fairly big chin at the bottom, which you should see in a second. It has a 720 by 1600 pixel display, so honestly, trash display, and it's also not even a IPS, it's a TFT panel, so I guess it's going to be more expensive. At least that's kind of how it works for gaming monitors. But when it comes down to overall reproduction, usually out of angles TFT look kind of bad. They discolor, although I don't really see it here, to be honest. It looks fairly okay from basically almost every angle, so this might be kind of a wrong info. It does seem like an IPS display, to be honest. Yeah, so let's quickly go to the setup right here. I'm gonna also crank up the exposure a little bit. There we go. Yes, I have read everything. Now going back to the display, also apart from the resolution, it has a 81.6% screen to body ratio. So nothing really spectacular, honestly, but you can see there's notch right here and just bezels all around. It does seem a little bit outdated of a device, even though it came out in 21. And when it comes down to screen density, it has a 270 pixels per inch. Obviously it's a fairly big display with a fairly crap resolution, so it basically results in it having and having a fairly low pixels per inch, and for some reason I cannot finish the setup without actually adding a network. That's fantastic. So let's add network and hopefully finish up the setup. Honestly, this is a little bit annoying. Not sure why it's like that. It's not like the device is locked or anything. It's literally brand new. Oh great, incorrect password. That just doesn't annoy me at all. Oh, there we go, finally connected, so I can actually proceed further. Hopefully, quality check, there we go. While this is finishing up the setup, I'm gonna mention this feels not great. It just feels like cheap plastic. The device in hand just feels like some kind of Eula phone trash device, and I don't mean that a good aspect, because for those devices at least they come with a lower price tag. This one feels like garbage and kind of... what? And apparently it's only annoying me at this moment. So great. So while it's rebooting for no reason because it added a network, I'm gonna quickly go over additional aspects because it literally just doesn't want to set up right now. We have quadruple camera set up at the back, but in reality don't count on most of them. As you can see, we have super tiny little sensor. You want to guess what that is? It's a macro at a 2 megapixel resolution. So the phone kind of follows this logic on basically everything. It has a lot of just really low specs, and maybe I should point out right now that the device costs 250 euros. So it is not cheap device by all means. There are way better devices at the same price range that will outperform this hands down in everything that this phone can do. So going back to the cameras, the main sensor is a 48 megapixel, and probably this is the only camera that is respectable here, but I'm gonna test it out in a second once I actually get to finish up the setup of the device. Then we have a 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth. Now realistically, I'm not even counting that 2 megapixel depth into sensors, so this phone realistically comes with 3 sensors, not 4. But I will also test it out. I'm really curious if it's gonna actually use the sensor or not, because I've most of the time when a phone uses a macro, or well, depth sensor, I mean, the photos just come out worse. It does like weird blurry effect, but it cannot distinguish what is a foreground and what is a background. So it makes an absolute mess of a photo, and basically when that happens, you might as well just glue up this lens and never use it. Okay, let's finish it up finally. Hopefully finish. Yay, finally. Okay, so we're gonna start off by opening up camera, and let's go to... So right now, what are these colors? So they're gonna look like... oh, holy, this is... what is this? So let me make out the brightness a little bit higher. Yep, I want to max it out so you can look at this atrocious color. So this is just... what is this color? Now here's a comparison of these two in light. So one looks completely trash in terms of color reproduction. Now on the camera that I'm recording it, comparing to like reality, it looks... this color, for instance, of the pot right here is a little bit brighter. Just the exposure is set a little bit differently, but this is way too saturated and just looks bad. Now outside of actual color reproduction, when we zoom in onto it, it has enough, I would say, detail, but still nothing really outstanding, I would say. Now let's also check out the other sensors right here. So we do have a macro. Let's see how that performs. It's only 5 megapixels, so again, don't expect anything outstanding right here. There we go. So we got a macro shot right here, and I would say it's serviceable. Nothing outstanding, but serviceable. If you need to take a macro shot, most certainly gonna look better than the actual normal 48 megapixel. And let's see, portrait should be the one that is using the depth sensor, and I can already see this atrocious effect right here. So let's see how it does with the actual plant. So it looks like the photo just came out really bad. Let's try that again. Okay, coming back to photo, it still looks terrible, so just don't use this mode. It just doesn't work. for some reason. Okay, so let's just eat out of this camera because it's not really anything spectacular right here. It's honestly just pure garbage, I would say. Considering this device costs 250 euros, no, this is bad. Now, finishing up the actual specifications of this device to add insult to injury. It comes with a MediaTek chipset, so it's not Snapdragon, it's not even an Exynos, it's a MediaTek. It's the cheapest thing you can get, and it's some kind of MediaTek Dimensity 720 5G, so it is just a 5G chipset right here, but it's bad, I would say. It's the cheapest thing, but the price tag doesn't really reflect it. Now, in terms of storage, we have a couple different options. Maybe I'll go with the first, the RAM. If you plan to have only 4 GB of RAM, which I would discourage you from, you have the options of 64 GB or 128 GB storage. Then when you want to have more RAM, so the device actually functions a little bit better, you have 128 GB storage option only, with the two RAM options of 6 and 8 GB. Now, I would advise you to go the 6 option, which probably will be good enough. 8 would be a little bit future-proof, although this device itself, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best device for future-proofing. So yeah. Now, also, it comes with a 5000 mAh battery, and has a 15-watt charger. So let that sink in. This is a charger from like basically 2000 and maybe 10. It even looks like they're old chargers. It just screams. It screams loudly, not quality. So yeah. And moving on to some actual decent features. It does have a fingerprint sensor, although it's side mounted, as you can see right over here. It has NFC. That is probably the best feature right here, which will allow you to simply pay with the device in a store. So you just turn on NFC and you can use Google Pay to actually pay for things with the phone. And also outdated 3.5mm jack for headphones. If you still use those, then good for you. You can actually use it here. If you don't, then kind of like for me, this is just completely useless. And honestly, finishing this off, I wouldn't really buy this device. I wouldn't recommend buying it. It just seems overpriced and doesn't really bring anything good to the table. It feels cheap, performs cheaply, has a cheap internals, cheap camera. The display even isn't good, considering this is Samsung. I would really like to see something higher quality than a LCD panel, or TFT as it supposedly is here. So yeah, and by all means, I wouldn't call this a good device, and I wouldn't call it a worth purchasing device. So that being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.